Today we are using our knowledge of adding and subtracting decimals to learn how to balance a check register. Most people store their money in a place called a bank. A lot of people like to organize their money into multiple accounts, like checking accounts, and savings accounts. Let's look at Mrs. McWilliams' 5 different accounts at her bank. Down below, we can see her accounts, their purpose, and their balances. Mrs. McWilliams has 1 checking account, and 4 savings accounts. Her checking account is used for day-to-day expenses, like paying bills, paying for groceries, when she goes out to eat, if she's buying clothes. And she has $250 in this account. She has a savings account, and this is a place to save money to be used only in the case of emergencies. This account has $500 in it. Then she has another savings account where she's saving money up to buy a car. And she has $300 saved up so far for that. In her 4th account, it's another savings account. And this is where she's saving money to go on a vacation. So it's her vacation fund. She has $150 saved in her savings account. Her last account, account number 5, is another savings account. Here's where she's saving money for college educations. So far, she has $300 saved in this account. All of the money in these 5 accounts belongs to Mrs. McWilliams. It's just put into separate accounts. So in question number 1, it asks us, how much money does Mrs. McWilliams have altogether? So because all of this money is hers, we would need to add together all 5 of her accounts. When we do, we realize that she has $1,500. If Mrs. McWilliams transfers $200 from account number 2 to account number 1, how much money will now be in account number 1? So we would need to go and look at how much money was originally in account number 1, Mrs. McWilliams' checking account. She had $250 in her checking account. If we were to add $200 to that, she would now have $450 in account number 1. Then it asks us how much is in account number 2. So she's transferring $200 from account number 2 to account number 1. So instead of adding $200, we would need to subtract $200 because she's taking it out of that account. So she originally started account number 2 with $500. She's taking $200 out. So when we subtract those two numbers, she now has $300 left in account number 2. Then it asks us, how much money will she have altogether in all accounts? Well, remember, at the top of the slide, it says all of the money in these accounts belongs to Mrs. McWilliams. It's just put in separate accounts. So if all she's doing is moving money from one account to another account, she still has $1,500 altogether because all of it is her money. So she still has $1,500, the same as what she started with. She's just moving the money around. Question number 3 says, if Mrs. McWilliams deposits $100 into account number 4, how much money will be in account number 4? We first need to look at this word deposit. If she's depositing money, she's putting money into an account. So we need to look at her original account balance for account number 4, which is $150. And then if she's depositing $100 into that account, we would add 100 and figure out her new total. So she now has $250 in account number 4. Question number 4 says, if Mrs. McWilliams buys groceries for $50 and uses her checking account to pay for it, what will be the balance of her checking account? So she's paying $50 out of her checking account, and we want to know the new balance. So we're going to look at account number 1. She has originally $250 in that account. Then she's going to be paying for groceries, so we would subtract $50 from that amount. And when we do, we find that she now has $200 in her checking account. Question number 5 says, if Mrs. McWilliams withdraws $50 from account number 3 to pay for her car repairs, how much money will be in the account? So we need to look at this word withdraw. When we withdraw money from an account, we are subtracting or taking money out of the account. So we would need to look and see how much she originally had in account number 3. Mrs. McWilliams had $300 in account number 3 to start with. Then if she's paying $50 for car repairs, we would need to subtract $50 out. And when we do, we find that she now has $250 left in account number 3. Now let's summarize a few vocabulary words. The first one is, what is a transfer? A transfer is the moving of money from one account to another. What is a deposit? A deposit is putting money into an account. And what is a withdrawal? A withdrawal is taking money out of an account. Let's look at Mr. Coles' accounts to the right to answer some questions. Mr. Coles has a checking account where all expenses come out of his checking account, and he currently has $690 in that checking account. He also has a savings account. Money isn't taken out of the savings account unless money is needed for expenses. He currently has $1,430 in his savings account. The first question asks us, how much money does Mr. Coles have? Remember that all of this is Mr. Coles' money. He just has it in different accounts. So we would need to add these two amounts together to figure out the total amount of money that Mr. Coles has. So we'll add the amount from his savings account and the amount of his checking account to find out how much money he has in total. Nine plus 3 is 12, we'll carry the 1. 6 plus 4 is 10, add the 1 is 11, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So Mr. Coles has $2,120. If Mr. Coles transfers $150 from his savings account to his checking account, how much money will be in his checking account? So he's transferring money from savings to checking. So if he's adding $150 to his checking account, we will take the current amount that he has, $690. We'll add 150 to that, and we'll figure out the new amount in his checking account. 0 plus 0 is 0. 9 plus 5 is 14. We'll carry our 1. And 6 plus 1 is 7, plus the 1 we carried is 8. So Mr. Coles now has $840 in his checking account. Then it asks us how much money will be in his savings account. He's taking the $150 from his savings account, so he's taking the money out. So this time, we would start with the amount that he had in his savings account, which was $1,430, and we will subtract out $150 to figure out how much he now has in his savings account. So 0 minus 0 is 0. We can't subtract 5 from 3, so we'll have to borrow. 13 minus 5 is 8. And 3 minus 1 is 2. And 1 minus nothing is 1. So Mr. Coles now has $1,280 in his savings account. Then it asks, how much money will he have in total? Remember that all of this money is Mr. Coles' money. All he did was move his money from one account to another account. So he still has $2,120 in total. Question number 3 asks, if Mr. Coles writes a check for $45 for his North yearbook, how much money will be in his checking account? So if he's writing a check, he's subtracting or taking money out of his checking account. So we'll start with how much money he originally has in his checking account, $690. We will subtract out the $45 that he is paying for his North yearbook, and we will figure out his new total. We can't subtract 5 from 0, so we have to borrow. 10 minus 5 is 5, 8 minus 4 is 4, and 6 minus nothing is 6. So Mr. Coles now has $645 in his checking account. Question number 4 says, if Mr. Coles deposits $250 into his savings account, how much money will be in his savings account? Well, we know that to deposit means to add money into an account, so we're going to be adding. We'll take his original amount, which was $1,430. We'll add $250, and we'll figure out his new total. 3 plus 5 is 8, 4 plus 2 is 6, 1 plus nothing is 1. So Mr. Coles would now have $1,680 in his savings account. The last question asks, if Mr. Coles withdraws $80 from his checking account, how much money will be in his checking account? We know that withdraw means to take money out of the account, so we would be subtracting. So we'll take his original number of $690, and this time we'll subtract out $80 from that and figure out his new total. 9 minus 8 is 1, and 6 minus nothing is 6. So Mr. Coles would now have $610 in his checking account. Remember, when you purchase something, you subtract that amount from the current balance. When you get paid, you add that amount to the current balance. When you put money into your checking account, it is called a deposit. When you take money out of your checking account, it is called a withdrawal. And when you move money from one account to another, it is called a transfer. The table below is called a check register. It is a way of keeping track of transactions in our bank accounts. Deposits, withdrawals, and transfers are all recorded, and the total amount in the account is recorded in the balance column. Notice how there are 5 different columns to fill out. There is a date column, the date the transaction was made, a transaction description column, what was happening? Were we paying for groceries, paying rent? Did we receive a paycheck? Did we pay a water bill? Then there's the deposit column, the withdrawal column, and the balance column. Notice how these last 3 columns have 2 separate columns within the column. This first box is for dollars, the whole dollar amount. The second box is for the cents. So if you had a deposit, if we were putting money into our account of $70.50, we would place the $70 whole dollar amount on the left and the 50 cents on the right. This line down the middle serves as your decimal point. You can even draw a decimal point in between if you would like. The deposit column is the third column. This is where we would place any transactions where we're putting money into our checking account. Next is the withdrawals column. This is where we would record money that is being taken out of the checking account. And last is the balance column. This is where we will record our new totals after money has been put into or taken out of the checking account. When you're recording a transaction on your check register, you will either place the dollar amount in the deposit column or the withdrawal column. You would not place the dollar amount in both because the money would either be put into the account or out of the account. You will always fill out the balance column to figure out your new ending balance. Now let's try balancing a check register together. Let's fill out the check register below with the transactions above to figure out the ending balance on 7/17. The first transaction happened on July 8th. So I'm going to fill in the date, 7/8. And then this tells me this was my starting balance. So for transaction description, I'm going to write starting balance. Since I'm not putting money into or taking money out of the checking account, this is just what I'm starting with. I'm only going to place this in the balance column. So I'm going to place my whole dollar amount on the left and then my 35 cents on the right. I can even put a decimal point in between to remind me that that line down the middle serves as my decimal point. So then if we move on to the next transaction, this one happened on July 10th. So we'll write 7/10 for the date. And this was to pay for groceries. So for my transaction description, I can write groceries. We're we're paying for groceries, so this money would be taken out of our checking account. So I'm going to place it in the withdrawals column. I'm going to place my whole dollar amount on the left-hand side, 48, and then my 25 cents will go on the right-hand side. And I can even put my decimal point in the middle. Now I need to figure out my new balance after I've taken the money out for groceries. So I'm going to subtract my starting balance and the money I took out for groceries. Notice how I'm lining my decimals up, and we can draw a line straight down the center so I can put my decimal point in my answer. And I know it's in the right place. 5 minus 5 is 0. 3 minus 2 is 1. I can't subtract 8 from 0, so I have to borrow. 10 minus 8 is 2. 4 minus 4 is 0. And 1 minus nothing is 1. So our new balance is $102.10. Now we're ready to move on to transaction number 3. This next transaction happened on July 15th. So we're going to write our date of 7/15. And this was a paycheck. So we're going to write paycheck for the transaction description. And when you receive a paycheck, you're putting money into your account. So this would be a deposit. So this is a paycheck for $200.70. So I'm going to take my new balance of $102.10 and add the paycheck amount of $200.70 to figure out what my new balance is. Again, I'm lining up my decimal points. I can draw a line straight through them, and I know my decimal point is correct in my answer. 0 plus 0 is 0. 1 plus 7 is 8. 2 plus 0 is 2. 0 plus 0 is 0. And 1 plus 2 is 3. So our new balance is $302.80. Now we're ready to move on to our next transaction. This one happened on July 16th. So we're going to write our date of 7/16. This was a transfer from our savings account. So I'm going to write transfer from savings for my transaction description. And we're moving money from the savings account to the checking account. So we are going to be depositing this money or adding it to our checking account. So I'm going to place that in the deposit column, $145.00. So we need to add our balance of $302.80 with $145 to figure out our new balance. Again, I'm lining up my decimal points so I could draw a line straight through them. And I know I've placed my decimal point correctly in my answer. So 0 plus 0 is 0. 8 plus 0 is 8. 2 plus 5 is 7. 0 plus 4 is 4. And 3 plus 1 is 4. So our new balance is $447.80. So then it asks, if you were to look on July 17th, what would the ending balance be? If you want, you can write a separate line item for this. So we could put 717, and this is our ending balance. And we already know what that is because we've already solved our last transaction. And so we can just rewrite that balance of $447.80. Now you will complete some independent practice and work on a quiz review on your own. Remember to check your work with the answer keys after you have completed your work.